if a member of this council makes an impassioned plea, I'm not going to embarrass them out here on a camera and tell them that that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. We can't keep it open for 89 hours because we don't have the money. That's not consensus. I think that where we have to get back to is where you are the COO, and you should bring us your best recommendation. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to get on to you because we don't think it's right.
And I was about to say,
but
that's,
you know what?
That's the only thing I ask is that.
But that's why we pay you $15 an hour so that you can take that when it happens. My point is I think we're putting the cart in front of the horse. This council should not sit here and go through these items and tell you, hey, I like this, I like that. That reducing the hours on the rec centers, that may be a no-go. But you guys have the information on how many people come through there during different hours of the day. You know where the least impact is. You know how many hours could be cut without severely impacting that community. So, I will send you emails on the ones that I think are that I'd like you to consider outside of those. I want to make one other comment, too, about this RFP process. I understand where Councilor Davis is coming from. I do. But I think we're at a point in the timeline of this thing where we don't have a choice to back up. If this group still wants to do business with us, I think you bring it and we vote it up or down. At the end of the day, we're going to tell them how much money we have to work with, and they'll have to adjust their operations accordingly, because it's going to be after we've tried to implement some of the things this task force has come up with. It's going to be after we take bits and pieces of some of these, not all of them. It's going to take a little bit from everywhere. And I don't think the natatorium is going to be where they really want to be at the 89 hours. I guess I'm not as aghast at that revenue projection. And if we're basing it off what the previous company did, I don't think that company did a thing they said they were going to do. They couldn't keep the pool water clean, so how can we expect them to do what they said they were going to do on marketing? It may be that this other company, and I don't want to go with the cheapest bidder on this, managing this thing, because that's how we got in the mess we got in this last time, and we had to dump all these hours on these two ladies over here. So I'm getting a little frustrated, and I'm sorry if I got a little long-winded, but I think that bring us a recommendation. We'll tell you if you hit it. We'll tell you if you miss it. And I don't think we should make an assumption that those revenue projections are out of line. Interview them, talk to them, find out where they think those numbers are coming from. I'll stop now.
All right. And he did bring you some suggestions.
I'm going to bring him more.
Yeah, you brought me 17 things, and you wanted me to go through
4 out
and
of
tell
17.
you and tell me. Well, that's not where we started. I don't want to start no fights now. But I'm just.
Well, the presentation was
I heard.
made before discussion was opened, and the 4 that were being recommended were put forth. And so, with the 17, to inform council that there were other choices to be made, but we'll come back with specific recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We have to know the implications of those.
With that, Mayor,
Okay. No, we got
more?
we're here all night. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, here we go. Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. City Manager, item 2 and 4 seem to be contradictory. It seems like you wouldn't have the savings in one or the other. If you close the pools, you're going to have $475 savings. If you only open them on the weekend, you're only going to have $347 savings. So it seems like we need to work through those. We may need to cut it down to 16. And then on number 5, it says close all 4 senior centers. And if you go to number 12, it says close Fox and Edgewood senior centers. So I'm not sure if that's the same thing, or if you didn't count Fox and Edgewood in the 4, or I'm not sure. So you may not have 17 there again. So if you could talk me through that.
well,
You
yeah,
see what I'm saying?
I got you. Yeah.
Okay.
And when we come back, some of those things may not be on your list unless you ask for them back.
But that's very good input.
Yes.
Councilor Allen on the 17
Yes.
items.
And okay, I'd like to agree with Council Thomas on a point. I mean, there are terms in here used that I don't think we need to be looking at. They're close and eliminate and those kind of terms. We need to be talking about reductions or some other term. Item number 13, charging each youth sports team $100 per team. council has voted this down 3 times. So I think that shouldn't even be on here. Number 14, charge an admission fee or membership to all recreation centers. I thought we were already doing that. I mean, if I go play basketball at Solomon Road, am I not charged to go in? You're not? I thought there were
No,
fees
if it's I'm sorry.
I thought there were fees for some type of fee that somebody pays to utilize it or
No, if you go and you become a part of an organized sports
Event,
program,
yeah.
then yes. But if you just drop by the rec center to go in the gym and play basketball with pickup, no.
okay. Are we charging those that do not live in Muskogee County?
Not if they just come for a pickup basketball or something like that, no.
So we're not checking IDs or doing anything like that?
No. If they're just kids that
Why?
want, you know.
I mean, why?
That's something we
Well,
can
but see,
put on
then we
list.
would have to get into tennis and all this other stuff.
I'm talking about recreation centers. I'm not talking about tennis.
So you're
Well-
just going to,
Well, what's the difference?
I mean, so what by me asking about a recreation center, you're going to spill this over to,
No, I'm saying we got to
Cooper Creek?
be consistent,
recreation facilities.
all, countywide. We can't be inconsistent.
well, that's another discussion besides to this right here, but it just seems to me that,
Well, and also, the rec centers are frankly not that big of amenity. And so I doubt there's people trucking in from Marion County or Harris County or, Phoenix City to use the Boxwood Rec Center, but they probably are coming in to use some of the other more high-end amenities, like the tennis courts and things like that. And I think also, though this would be something you need to look at, I think with the youth sports teams, we have voted over and over again to raise certain fees on youth sports, but not on baseball.
Yeah,
Isn't
we
that
went
right?
up on some, yeah.
We went on
No, I
some
think-
youth sport teams,
I
but not
think
on other youth
last
sports
budget
teams.
cycle, we voted, Councilor Pugh and I talked about increasing the fees on adult teams, but we did not. We've always consistently voted down charging $100 for youth.
Thought we voted up on
Finance
soccer.
director,
Yeah.
the deputy city manager is saying that, I know that we did youth sports, and there was one particular,
We didn't charge anything for youth. They
No,
took
it
all
was
of youth out.
adults.
They allowed a charging for adult leagues, but not
Adult
youth.
Okay.
no youth.
And what about soccer? Did we do the same for soccer? I thought we,
It was
Up to
everything.
kids,
That was
okay.
part of the youth. The only other thing I have, Mr. City Manager, is number 17. I'm not sure that really warrants us even looking at. I'm not sure who you're talking about traveling and schools and conferences and
well,
that
that's for
kind of thing.
all of Parks and Rec's,
entire
the entire
budget.
budget.
No,
And that
That's their
means
entire budget.
that no one would do anything.
Yep.
Right, they would lose this,
No,
for the whole
For the
next
whole
year.
fiscal year.
They would lose their certifications and all of that. They
Yeah.
couldn't teach children and, yeah, I mean, so that's just their
That
whole
shouldn't even
budget.
be on there.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
But it's paid
It's
by
being
someone
paid
else.
for by a third party and not by these taxpayers. So
The other thing that
that's the kind of
somebody-
comment that's very unproductive. I mean, the taxpayers aren't paying, the taxpayers aren't paying for that. The taxpayers aren't paying for that. And so Dr. Worsley, that's why the city manager mentioned it to start with, that the Knight Foundation paid his way to go so that we could compete with 12 cities for a $5 million grant. And we
Right.
needed a director-level person who could make the show for Muskogee County. And implementation, $5 million. I'm just saying that we've got to get this straight, that the man is not on taxpayer dime. He's not on taxpayer dime. It has nothing to do with the $12,000.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
I got you.
All right, moving on. Counselor Woodson.
I hope to close this conversation tonight.
You're not going to. There's 6 more in queue.
This is a good presentation, and there are some things here like, City Manager, I'm concerned with number 7, just turning it all over to the school system like that right away. I have a problem with that because if they don't have the funding, there are going to be children out of after-school programs. I'd rather for it to go as planned, as, tell them how many more you're going to take per year or per month or whatever, but I don't think it's a good idea to tell them, here, here are all these programs, you're going to take them eventually, take them. No, because what usually happens is where the schools are Chapter 1, 13s or 1s, whatever it's called, it's been a long time, they're the ones that are going to get hurt in the process of it. And so I'm concerned about that. I need us to be very careful with that when we're talking about our children, you know, how it's going to affect them. I would suggest, because this is a lot of information and we do need a lot of more information, and it's already 10 o'clock at night, we haven't even gone through your budget and through your agenda or the clerk's agenda. I would suggest that we come back on a work session or take that third Tuesday that we don't have a council meeting and just dedicate it just to this. Don't bring a lot of other items, just to this with all the breakdown, and let us have this discussion that we're having, you know, here. I know that we think very much about conferences, not spending that kind of money in conferences and travel and stuff. I'm concerned about that because a lot of these conferences and travels are certifications and their training. And I hate for our credit rating to go down. I hate it for us to, after all this hard work we've done, all we've done, to start putting Columbus on the map, it starts going away. And then we lose people and we need to hire new people and they say, well, shoot, I can't get certified, I can't get trained, I'm limited. I don't want to go to Columbus, Georgia and work. You know, we have to be very careful. I understand that some conferences, people abuse them, things happen, but we really have to be careful about that when we determine to eliminate. To me, this shouldn't have even been here. It should have been completely not even brought, because it has nothing to really do with the pool. And I'm not scolding or yelling.
No, it was requested.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just saying, just my own personal comments. I understand cutting back and, you know, and things like that for travel, but we got to be careful what we're cutting back from travel.
Sure.
And how we're doing it. Because I know that if I want to go somewhere real bad, I pay for it out of my pocket. And when I'm paying out there and you're talking to people, they say, you mean you paid it out of your pocket? Your city didn't even do that, and you're representing your city? Can you imagine one of our employees? That bothers me completely. So I'm just asking for recommendation, because we're going to be here till midnight, that we come back on either a Tuesday that we don't normally come back, or take a work session like soon, like
Sure.
next month, and don't put anything on there but this. Everybody's telling y'all what they want to hear. Put it down, bring it, and then let's go in and say, no, yeah, no, yeah, no, yeah. Walk the door. Gary told y'all what he wanted already, and it sounded good, so let's go with it.
It was good input. Okay, yeah, we can do that. We've got a work session in March, and we've got the opportunity for the third week in March as well. One of the reasons why we keep pushing forward, we talked about a special called meeting, but it just couldn't work out. It was too short notice. But it's because we've got budget coming up. And so, you know, we're trying to get some guidance before we start laying down recommendations.
Give us
so-
a week notice and give us a special call meeting.
Yeah. It's just,
You can
we
do a
couldn't.
special call meeting.
Yeah, we did. We were going to, but we'd only have 3 or 4 counselors. So
No,
it's
no,
not
I
very
don't mean the
productive.
past, I mean going now,
Sure.
today, you know, as we're talking here, because you know what, everybody's getting tired, they're getting irritated, we still got more agenda, we're not being effective.
Sure.
We're getting irritated right now, and we're not being focused, and we're just blowing up. It's easier to call everybody or email everyone and said, okay, here are some dates for a special meeting. Can you check your calendar and let's have a special meeting for this day?
Sure.
Or let's take a Tuesday or the next work session, eliminate everything off of it and bring this. Because we're going to keep talking and we're getting irritated at each other now. We're not focused.
Okay. We can do the
We
work
need to
session.
get
Not a
this.
problem. Okay.
Go
Counselor
ahead.
Huff.
Mr. City Manager, in the thought process of the 17 and the chart with the 4, 1, 6, 7, and 11, was the concept, those were the best 4 to look at that moment, to not eliminate any programs for seniors and children in the rec departments, rec centers? Well, you have 17, and out of the 17, there's a box here, gold 500,000, and you have number 1, number 6, number 7, and number 11.
Yeah, they were not in any particular order, but
But I'm
from a
saying-
combination of any of the 17, if we could come up with $500,000, I think we solved the aquatic center funding.
Yeah, I'm saying, but in this example, it did not address any of the children and the seniors in the other
Well,
programs.
no, we were going to come back with the others, on a staggered basis, not this meeting, but next meeting, we'd come back
Okay.
with some more.
Because we've come way too far with Parks and Rec for the children and the seniors to
I don't disagree with that.
affect them
Yeah, I don't
when it
disagree
comes
with
to
that
any
at
other
all.
programs.
I don't disagree with that at all. We captured things that we heard coming from different people,
Okay.
and they're on the list. We didn't expect these things many of them to go far, and we've heard from you, at least with them on the list. You've said if you're going to look at anything, reduce hours or something like that, but don't eliminate, don't close, don't eliminate, and we get that.
Okay, because,
Yeah.
in reality, the kids really don't have anything else to do
Sure.
in the summer.
Yeah.
The seniors fill their schedules year-long with
It-
activities.
Yeah, it's not my desire.
Everything in between, we have other activities and we're growing and doing things. Recommendation, to piggyback off of what Councilor Woodson said, I'd like to add to that, if we could somehow work out a way to come in and set work sessions to do all the presentations at different times.
Yeah.
Because we need to really get down to the business of the city and take care of everybody's agendas and get through the process. Because at this point, like Councilor Woodson said, I think everybody's irritated to the maximum right now. And I am no different, Everybody has their own agenda and schedule. I worked till 4 o'clock this morning. I've had 3 hours of sleep. I've been to LaGrange and back today. I've been to other programs today. I missed the luncheon today because I was working. I ended up in a program at 5 o'clock for Teacher of the Year and got here on time today. And I just need to go home and get some rest. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Counselor Baker.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. City Manager, could you bring back options 18 through 35 next time? Take a look at some more of those. We need some more.
Yeah.
Let me ask a quick question about the vendor A, since maybe at some point we're headed there, maybe not. I don't know that. But the 1.26 million, I mean, that's a contract amount, a fixed contract amount?
That was from their proposal with some negotiations with them, yes.
So if there are other revenues working with the task force and the advisory committees, those revenues would come to us and we would simply use that money to help pay the contract cost?
That's correct.
What if it was on the other end? What if working with those groups, we were able to achieve a cost savings? Are we locked into that fixed contract cost, or is that a flexible amount?
We would have to word the contract to provide for provisions for those types of things. The contract amount is for them to operate it for 89 hours with the requirements of the specifications in the RFP. So if we made changes to those things, we would have to do a change order to their contract to adjust their contracted price based on what we required them to do.
And that can be done after it's in place. That's not something we have to keep amending until.
Now, obviously, we would have to negotiate a change order with them if we were going to reduce their fee for a particular reason.
And that was my question.
And they would
I
have
didn't
to
want to be
agree
stubborn
to
and saying
it.
no. I mean,
Right, they would have to agree to it, and if they didn't agree to it, they might say, we would have to negotiate that part.
Well, and my question would be, is that something we need to know before we take the final vote on vendor A? Is there a flexibility in the contract if there's a cost savings that somehow that accrues to us? We can.
The cost savings from their standpoint would be if they're not having to operate the hours, 89 hours a week.
Right.
If we reduce the hours, then obviously the requirements for the contract would be reduced. So we would have to work that out with them up front. Maybe if we require you to do 89 hours, this is the contract price. If we reduce it to 77 hours, this is the contract price. So we would have to work that out.
And if, working with these other groups along the way, through volunteer hours or something, there's a cost savings. Is there any way for that to get built into the?
We would have to look at that. It seems like a lot of the programs that the task force was recommending would enhance the programs at the facility, not necessarily replace the requirements of the third-party contractor. So we
Okay.
would have to look at those, I think, individually based on those programs that they're recommending and what would go forward.
Okay. I just didn't want to be locked into a fixed contract if we achieve cost savings and we can't recognize it. That's my only concern. So if you could take a look at that,
We can look
then
at
I'm fine. Thanks.
All right, we've got Counselor Davis.
Mr. City Manager, you cannot fault me for trying to find a way to save the city money because I know sooner or later there's going to be another need in Parks and Rec. You and I know that. We've been doing this a long time. There's going to be another need, another request. So anything you can save today is great. I do want to say that tonight, didn't really want to bring a lot of this out, but there were requests made. I think I was very specific in an email to you and the mayor about if you would give me a call that we could discuss this matter. I would have liked that opportunity, but somewhat it didn't happen, so we talked about it tonight. I do want to really understand this RFP measure that we're talking about. If you've got an RFP that's already been written and sent out, it's already come back, and you've identified vendors, you've identified finalists, and you only turn around and make a few adjustments to that. In the matter, like it was just talked about, specifications, the contract's already been written up. The RFP's already been written up. If you make some changes to that, how come it takes so long to go back out? Why couldn't you put a specification on there with a timeline, with a deadline, that we want it back in 3 weeks or 4 weeks and just see what happens? Why couldn't you do that?
Well, it's and the deputy city manager a couple of weeks ago did a presentation on RFP process. And, she can answer the question better than I can, but that stuff takes 6 weeks. You want to walk through that?
And it's not necessarily that we can issue the RFP. It has to stay on the streets a certain period of time as required under the ordinance. And then
how
we
long
have
is
to,
that?
I believe it's 15 days.
15 days.
And don't quote me on that, but I believe it's 15 days. But I did a presentation. We can look that up. But it's allowing the vendors the time to put their proposals together. Most of them come in, especially for this type of a service, in a notebook like this, because we ask for a lot of detailed information from them. And then the committee that has to review, there were 7 proposals submitted. So you have committee members that have to review all those proposals. The committee meets, they discuss each proposal individually. If there's questions they want to ask to a particular vendor, they go through that process. They do evaluations. Sometimes they require site visits, reference checks. So it's a very intensive process. And then a lot of times, and in this particular case, we had the top 2 vendors come in and make presentations to the committee. They had a lot of questions for them. They want to make sure that the vendor that they're recommending is the one that's going to meet the needs of the city. And so this process, the RFP was issued in February, and it took us till October to work through all that to get to a point where we felt like the vendor we were selecting was the highest recommended rated vendor. So it's for some things, it's quick. If you want to purchase a vehicle, it's write the specifications, send it out, and we get the quotes back and we're ready to go. With a service like this, it's a longer process just because of the evaluation process by the committee and then presentations by the top vendors.
Well, how many finalists were there?
We had 2 finalists in this particular RFP. And that kind of fluctuates based on the committee and based on the scoring. Sometimes there's 2 or 3 that rise to the top. Sometimes, they're all real close and you might want to bring in 4 or 5. I mean, we've had kind of both situations. Sometimes there's one vendor that outranks everyone, and you want to have one vendor that comes in and makes a presentation. So it really depends on the specific service.
So if you've got a lot of this work already out of the way, I mean, I suspect y'all got a wealth of information from going through this process,
Right.
and you know who's out there, and you know who meets the specifications. Other than doing a site visit and stuff like that, if you were to expedite the process, how long are we talking about?
Well, the other thing is the time that these vendors take to put their proposals together. We saw this with the insurance proposal. We had a lot more vendors submit, and when we went right back out again, we had a limited number of people submit. So my guess would be that out of these 7 vendors, I don't know that all of them would resubmit a proposal.
And that would be a positive.
Well,
would-
unless
it
you're
would
not
cut
going to
down
get
on
the
your time,
top-ranked
right?
vendor, which we feel like the vendor that, the company A
So what
vendor
are we
is the
talking
top-ranked
about if
vendor.
you were to expedite, well, say, now you say there were 7 vendors, if you expedite the process with amending a couple lines here and there,
Well, I think
How
we
long
need to
would it
bring
take?
you the proposal and the specifications that were in the bid, because I think everything that you're asking for was included in the bid. We asked them for their marketing program, their hours of operations, their experience. I mean, I think all of the things that you're looking for, I think
okay,
was
well,
in
then,
the proposal.
then that helps me because that's already done, so you don't have to do that. But
Right.
maybe a line here or there in the specifics of what you're looking for, mainly in the cost to operate.
Well, I don't want to say that cost is always the number one. It's a component, but it's not the one and only thing that's evaluated. We don't want the lowest cost vendor that has no experience. So
What would it take you if you expedited it, a month, 2 months?
I mean, you're talking about really starting over, because you would have to cancel this particular RFP and then issue a new one. So the process, we would have to go back through the process. This particular one took from February to October, so that's a 8-month process. I mean, could we do it in 6 months? If everybody's schedules align, probably so. But I don't know that we would get to a different result than where we're at today unless particular vendors didn't submit proposals.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
I would like to make a motion that we take March 15th, which is the 3rd Tuesday in the month of March, and have a council meeting, a work session, but to deal strictly with Parks and Rec.
We do have a work session, that 5th one, just.
No, we need to get on this as soon as we can,
Okay.
because the 15th, we're not going to be finished.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. It's a motion to have a special call meeting on the 15th. Motion second. Any discussion related to that? All right, all those in favor of a special called meeting on the 15th, please state aye. What's that? 9 a.m.? 9 a.m.? Please state aye. What's that?
Evening, prefer evening, me too. See, I'm not the only one. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, we'll be only doing one thing.
And I won't be able to be here that night, so you'll be okay.
But we need you.
And Madam Mayor, I really wish we could do 2 subjects,
Well-
garbage trucks and
It's gonna take long enough. on
an
this.
aquatic center. We probably won't.
Almost gonna be here that morning, but she can't be here that evening. And I know it's a sacrifice, because I used to work.
Rub it in. Rub it in. All right, Counselor Henderson, do you have anything further? All right, we got a special called meeting. All those in favor for the 15th in the morning at 9 o'clock, please state aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Madam Mayor, I'm going to move into my regular agenda.
Because after 4 hours, I have to go.
All right, move into, if you would, your action item agenda, Mr. City
Yeah.
Manager.